Hello and welcome to another edition of the Hispanic Patriot, a weekly podcast broadcast live from a secret, undisclosed location deep behind enemy lines in Denver, Colorado. Here we speak the truth and nothing but the truth. So help me God. And now, without further ado, here's the host of the Hispanic Patriot, Hugo Chavez Ray.
All right. Thank you, Peter. Welcome to another edition of the Hispanic Patriot. We've got a full slate for you tonight. Some important topics that are both hitting the news in our state and nationally. We're going to talk about a couple of different topics regarding the Colorado Republican Party and the upcoming meeting this Saturday in Castle Rock. And we hope to shed some light. We've been watching a lot of the discussions taking place on social media. Me, myself personally, being a bonus member on that central committee, I've received a ton of emails from people both supporting and opposing the proposed amendment. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. So the Colorado Republican Party has a central committee meeting this Saturday, August the 5th at 9 a.m. And it's basically for central committee members only. And there's a couple of topics that are going to be on the table. And one of them is an amendment to our bylaws, which basically states that a member who is not in attendance at the meeting, that their vote will be counted automatically as a yes vote. And on the surface, it sounds a little bit nefarious and offbeat, so to speak. But let me explain just a little bit about why this came about. There's an opposing group, of course, that do not want our state party to opt out of the open primaries, which are unconstitutional. And I'll get to that in just a moment. But the yes vote was proposed because there's a group out there who is actively calling state central committee members and encouraging them to not attend the meeting. And that's in an effort to defeat the 75% threshold that is required to pass the opt-out vote. That's another unconstitutional aspect of Proposition 107 and 108 that was thrust upon us by a referendum that the voters voted upon. But, you know, what people don't understand is just because voters vote to pass something, it doesn't make it right and it doesn't make it constitutional. So it has not been challenged in the courts yet, but the lawsuit, to my understanding, has been filed this week. It was on the news a couple of days ago. And so the process has begun, and that is to challenge the unconstitutional mandate that requires Republicans and Democrats alike to hold open primaries where unaffiliated or independent voters can vote in the primary of one or the other party. Now, you need to understand that a political party is a private organization that has the right to conduct its own business, set its own rules, and select its own candidates. This open primary concept was thrust upon us by people who wanted to muddy the water, so to speak, and dilute the Republican conservative candidates that are put up for the general election. So with people from outside the party voting, it basically dilutes our ability as a party to select our own candidates that stand by our platform and share our values and will represent our party the way we want it to be represented. So that's how this all came about. But let me just touch base on something for you. The Supreme Court of the United States ruled on open primaries back in the year 2000. In a 7-2 opinion delivered by Justice Antonin Scalia, the court held that California's blanket primary violates a political party's First Amendment right of association. Proposition 198, this was in California, forces political parties to associate with, to have their nominees and hence their positions determined by those who at best have refused to affiliate with the party and at worst have expressly affiliated with a rival. So Justice Scalia wrote for the majority, a single election in which the party nominee is selected by non-party members could be enough to destroy the party. Justice Scalia went on to state that the court, for that proposition 198, takes away a party's basic function to choose its own leaders and is functionally both severe and unnecessary. So there is precedent for challenging this unconstitutional mandate that was thrust upon us in 2018, I think, maybe 2017. But the point is that ever since that came along, Republicans have lost basically every election. Now, there are various reasons for losing the election. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that one item alone is the reason, but it is unconstitutional and should be done away with. So that's what's on the table for the State Central Committee on September the 30th. Prior to that, this Saturday, we are going to be electing a new vice chair because the existing vice chair, Priscilla Ron, had resigned to run for another office in Douglas County. So we're going to be electing a new vice chair at this meeting, and then there is an amendment on the table to set the rule for this one issue only. This is very important. This is a one issue only proposition. It is not a blanket statement nor a blanket rule that would apply to everything across the board at Central Committee meetings. So for this purpose, and the reason this came about, as I mentioned, is because the opposition has taken it upon themselves to basically play like Democrats, and they're employing dirty tactics by contacting Central Committee members and encouraging them to not show up at the September 30th meeting to defeat the opt-out proposition. So that's where we stand. This Saturday, we will be voting on this yes amendment. I personally believe that we should pass it because otherwise the other side is going to win just by default because there's going to be enough members that will not show up, and therefore we cannot reach the 75% threshold of the vote needed to pass the opt-out vote. And keep in mind that this 75% is not of the members present, but of the entire body, which is another pretty bad issue with regards to Prop 107 and 108. The court saddled us with that. There's no other vote or issue that requires a 75% threshold of the entire member body. None. Nobody can point to it, and therefore it's a very unreachable goal, so to speak, even if 100% of the members attend the meeting. Personally, I've been attending these meetings for a lot of years, and I find it hard pressed to see 75% of the membership agreeing on anything. But nevertheless, the vote should be an up or down vote. I mean, that's the point. Let's have the members attend. Let's have the vote. It'll either pass or it won't pass. But to encourage people to just throw a monkey wrench into the process, that's not correct either. So therefore, the yes vote amendment will at least provide a countermeasure to that dirty tactic. And if they don't show up, then their vote will be counted as yes if this amendment passes. which I'm urging all the members to vote to pass. So there's a lot of misinformation on this. Today I received a flyer in the mail that and this is by an organization that is very secretive. And I did a little research and found out that it's put up by an organization called Right Colorado. And here is the flyer that I received today. This is Dave Williams being portrayed in the ugliest of ways to confuse uninitiated Central Committee members. Look at this flyer and see what they're saying. Everything on this flyer is a lie, flat out lie. And so people need to be aware that there are groups out there. And I had to think that I stopped to think and said, how much money did they spend to create this full color flyer and then mail it out across the board to all Central Committee members? And this just goes to show that the opposition is very scared of the grassroots movement in the state, because it's going to take away power from them that they have held or had a stranglehold on for quite some time. And it's time for the people to speak their voices and fight back. So this is the kind of opposition that we're up against. And we just urge the Central Committee members to think very long and hard about how they vote and not be swayed by misleading documents like this one. This is what Democrats do. They play dirty, they lie, and they confuse people who are not paying attention. And people have lives to live. Central Committee members are regular folk who have jobs, families, and other things to attend to. And so not everybody is a political junkie and pays 100% attention to everything. So when they receive something like this, it could be very effective in swaying the way they vote. So I'm just urging everyone to think and vote correctly on this amendment on August the 5th. So that's...
Which would be yes, to be clear, right? We want to vote yes.
We want to yes on the yes amendment. The yes amendment makes it where a non-attending Central Committee member becomes a yes vote automatically because they did not attend the meeting. Now, they don't have to attend in person. They can send a proxy. That's part of the rules as well. They can send a proxy if they want to vote, but to just simply boycott the meeting in an attempt to undo the process, basically to make this process not work by not being able to reach the 75% threshold, then that's why the yes amendment is needed. So a lot of people have made a lot of ridiculous comments about it, calling it un-American, a power grab by the chairman, which, by the way, he wasn't even the proponent of this amendment. This came from another citizen and interested activist who thought about it and said, if they're going to play dirty, then we're going to propose this amendment to offset what they're trying to do. So that's what's going on. Again, go to our website if you have questions, if you have comments. I will be happy to respond to anyone who would like answers and clarifications to what's going on. Don't listen to the hyperbole on social media and people that are flat out lying. That's wrong. It's one thing to have a debate. It's another to lie and make people think that something is what it is not. So that's what I wanted to say about that. Now, moving along, as everyone is quite aware, we have a brand new indictment of President Trump that was issued very interestingly, the day after the testimony of one of Hunter Biden's Burisma partners that basically uh, explained what he was up to and his father, and it made them look very bad. So what happens the next day? Well, that news goes away because another yet ridiculous indictment of President Trump is put forth by a very corrupt DOJ. Uh, Jack Smith, I don't know what I can say about this guy on the air, but he is as dirty as they come. Just look up Jack Smith, Google what he's done in the past as a special prosecutor, and you'll understand how this guy doesn't know the Constitution from the New York Times. And the thing about um, Jack Smith's record, it speaks for itself. Most of his cases have been thrown out on appeal because everything that he does is boned up to be something it's not. And even though you may get a conviction on a lower court, once it goes up the level in federal court and even Supreme Court, in which cases he has been overturned, um, it comes out. But the process has to play itself out. Uh, there, the charges on this latest indictment are basically that President Trump conspired to undermine the electoral process of the United States, that he interfered uh, in the electoral count, electoral college vote and count at the uh, House of Representatives on January 6th, and that somehow he knew that the election was clean, but he put out this false narrative that it was a stolen election. Um, well, you can have your opinions about whether the election was stolen or not. I have mine, you have yours. But the fact that you can criminalize political speech is a direct assault on the First Amendment. Imagine for a moment if this type of charge was able to be leveled against any politician. I hazard to say that everybody in the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate would be in prison today because politicians lie. Okay, that's been an accepted practice. I don't like it. You probably don't either. But you can't criminalize free speech. That's just anti-American, and this one really is anti-American, anti-First Amendment to be specific. And yet you have all these talking heads on all these multiple uh, networks that are totally anti-Trump, trying to act like this is some sort of victory, that we're bringing Trump to justice for uh, obstructing justice and for being anti-American by trying to dispute an election. Does anybody remember Hillary Clinton after the 2016 election? Or how about Stacey Abrams in 2018 in the governor race in Georgia, where she basically declared herself the governor because she said that the election had been stolen. So, you know, it's a ridiculous charge. Um, the problem is the president is going to have to defend it, and hopefully there will be a change of venue. The judge that has been appointed to this case is a rabid anti-Trumper that was appointed by Obama. So let's have that on the table as well. And it's going to be heard in the District of Columbia, where 97% of the voters are Democrat. So you tell me where the uh, even keeled and trial uh, and judgment by your peers is going to take place in Washington, D.C. It can't. So we'll see how this plays out. But little Jack Smith has put his foot in it again. But to be honest, this is what Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, that's why they picked him. They knew he was a rabid attack dog that would, not care about rules, regulations, or the law, and just make stuff up as he goes along. So this is what's happened now, and the president has another indictment with 4 charges uh, to be 4 charges that have to be defended. These are felony charges. So far, last count, it looks like President Trump, if convicted on all the charges that have been leveled against him right now, could be sentenced to 561 years in prison. Okay? That's like 6 lifetimes. And yet, all the Democrats and everybody that sits there and defends Joe Biden for what he's done, the absolute most corrupt president in our history, and yet they act like nothing's ever happened. Let me just give you a little bit of a tidbit about our illustrious president and what has transpired. You've probably been watching the news, so you see all the Democrats defending the president. Here's what the Democrats say. They say there's no evidence against Joe Biden for anything. So, in a sense, they're probably right. Outside of bank records, the suspicious activity reports, the wire transfers, the private bank transactions, the LLCs, the texts, the emails, the WhatsApp messages, the photos of Joe with Hunter Biden's business partners, the voicemails to his son, the 2 business partners saying that Joe is the big guy and the chairman, the 2 whistleblowers' testimony, the recorded calls between Biden and Poroshenko, the video of Joe Biden bragging about getting the Ukrainian prosecutor fired while withholding a $1 billion grant from the U.S. to Ukraine, and Hunter's statements that he gave his dad half his income. There's absolutely no evidence that Joe is involved in anything nefarious or illegal. Got all that? Yeah, that's what we're up against. So we have officially, folks, crossed into banana republic status. Okay? This is what happens in banana republics. Politicians jail their opposition. In this case, Biden is trying to jail his main political rival, Donald J. Trump, in a presidential election. If this isn't election interference, then I don't know what is. DOJ has officially now criminalized political speech. It's unprecedented in our history, and it's severe and dangerous to our republic. I'm shaken. I'm really literally shaking at what is taking place in our country. I cannot believe that even biased journalists can put up with this kind of stuff. But you know what the funny thing about this whole thing is? They don't realize what Marxists do. When Marxists finally get control of this country, if they ever do, guess who the first people are they're going to put in jail? Journalists. So the joke is on them. They are literally assisting in their own demise should all of this come to pass. So that's how ridiculous all of this is.
It's like the boa constrictor, he kind of slithers on in and gets comfortable and cozy, and you think it's cuddling with you, it really likes you, and then next thing you know, you can't breathe, you're getting choked out.
Well, it's also the lobster in the pot effect, where you stick the lobster in the cold water and start boiling the water. By the time the lobster realizes that he's being boiled, it's too late.
That's right. Well, and that's just it. I mean, I came across this. I'm looking. We got Stalin, Adolf Hitler, and Mao.
Yep.
All responsible for millions of deaths. Hitler being the least amount. He only racked up a whopping 20 million. Mao and Stalin were, I believe, over 100 each.
Yeah. Oh yeah, easily.
And they were socialists, communist socialists. What do you want to call it? They're communists, but they're Marxists. They were neo-Marxists.
But what do they all have in common? They all jailed their political opponents.
Have their political opponents arrested.
Yep.
So I thought that was interesting. I mean, here's the thing is, oh wait, hang on. Got to get Hugo back. All right. So, I see that I saw the BBC article on Burisma and that whole situation and how there's no evidence, this, that, and the other thing. I mean, the evidence certainly is mounting. The only reason why I believe it hasn't there haven't been convictions yet is just with all the stonewalling. He's the president. What are you going to do? Like, half the people around. Well, I mean, honestly, I believe half the people that are tooting his horn, social media. It's there's a lot of liberal whack jobs in big tech, but they're also putting the pressure on them. I mean, you might be buddies up front, but the second you try and leave the cabal, you can't get out of the mob. Once you're in, you're in.
What are the qualifications for being impeached? High crimes, misdemeanors, bribery.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Joe Biden is guilty of all three. Mm-hmm. Okay. He tries to wash his hands by making ridiculous statements like the DOJ is an independent entity over which I exert no control. If you believe that lie, I have a bridge to sell you.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a joke. The latest indictment is a joke. Has no basis in fact and is completely unconstitutional. Using this standard, like I mentioned earlier, every politician currently serving in office would be in prison. Where is Hillary? Where's Hillary's indictment? Or Stacey Abrams? Or Adam Schiff? Or Chuck Schumer? Where? I could go on, but I think you get the message. Polls show Biden even or trailing Trump across the nation. Now, for an incumbent, that's virtually a loss, okay? And especially for someone who they claim, I heard another good one today from, and I can't remember who they were interviewing, but some joker on CNN actually compared Donald Trump to Osama bin Laden and said that he was as dangerous as Osama bin Laden, that he was a terrorist.
Which I'm still having a hard time understanding that. Well, I have a question for you because, a lot of the libs argument is Trump's son was in dealings with other people and they were, what was it? I don't know too much about that. What was the difference between Trump and his son and that whole deal? Like, that's what they're trying to say.
Yeah, nothing.
Oh, it's all the same deal.
Nothing, because Trump's son, Donald Jr., and his son-in-law were conducting business for the Trump organization, legal business, with foreign nations, with other types of, customers or clients. But they weren't peddling influence from their father or father-in-law.
Right. They're just doing business.
They were just doing business, but they want to
legal business.
They try to equate everything, and and like you probably heard on the news and some of the talk shows. Just reverse this for a moment. Let's just say it's President Trump and his son Donald Jr., and they were guilty of all of these crimes and allegations. Do you think that the media would be defending them? They would be already in prison.
Yeah, for sure.
they would be locked up and
Right.
the key thrown away. But, getting back to the polls a little bit, the irony of all this, the more they attack Trump, the higher his poll numbers jump.
Right.
And you can extrapolate that to know, or to mean, that the American people are not buying this crap. Okay, they're fully aware that this is a political persecution, not a prosecution. There's a big difference. Look up the words: persecution and prosecution. This is not a prosecution. This is a persecution that has been going on since 2016, and the Democrats have never quit. They've been caught in every lie. Everything they've thrown at them has been proven false, and yet they keep coming on. And why? Because they control all the reins of government right now. But that's going to come around, and it's going to change. You can't make this stuff up,
Right. And so that's the big difference then. Trump's son, it was legal business dealings. They're trying to say, Hunter's business was all legal and this and that. And, Biden was, I don't know, totally disconnected. But if you watch the Tucker Carlson interview with Devin Archer, you see this letter. Gosh, I'm going to pull up this letter. Why? First off, one of the points Tucker makes is if Biden is just hanging out, being friendly, but staying out, why is he calling his son Hunter during these meetings and putting him on speaker? And then why is he pressuring these companies to fire? And what's all this about? If he's,
come on, Peter, they were talking about the weather,
right? Exactly. The point is,
they wanted to know what the forecast was for Ukraine for his trip.
Which father with grown kids like Hugo, is going to be calling his kids during their business meetings, during their independent business meetings? You know what I'm saying?
At 1 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. Joe Biden awake at 1 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah. Hey, this is just friendly conversation. Okay. We got it. Hang on. So let me see this. I'm going to try and look this up, but you keep going. I'm going to pull up this letter here.
Yeah. So basically, my whole thing about this, and I pay attention to what the polls say. I'm not a big poll person. I want to put that out there up front. But if people want to cite polls, then let's cite polls. Right now, Trump is dead even with Biden, which translates into a loss for Biden. And second, every time they attack him, indict him, or continue to try to smear him, his poll numbers go up. We're not even talking about the Republican nomination anymore. I mean, you got people out there talking about other candidates in the Republican primary. But, what I said to someone today on Facebook was that every other candidate right now on the Republican side is basically competing for a vice presidential or a cabinet slot in Trump's administration. They know they have not got a prayer of getting the nomination. Trump is going to run away with the nomination. So the only other thing they can do to try to derail him is make sure that he's tied up in court during the campaign. And that's really their end game. But yeah, I saw this letter. See? Dear Devin, I apologize for not getting a chance to talk to you at the luncheon yesterday. I was having trouble getting away from hosting President Who. I hope I get a chance to see you again soon with Hunter. I hope you enjoyed the lunch. Thanks for coming. Sincerely, Joseph R. Biden, Vice President of the United States. Happy your group are together. But he never talked to his son about any business dealings, and he had no knowledge of any of his son's business dealings. Just like he had no knowledge of his son drug addiction. And now, as despicable as these people are, did you hear what the latest defense is now that they're throwing up?
What's that?
They're using Joe Biden's dead son, Beau, as an excuse for what Hunter was doing. They said he was just beyond grief-stricken, and this caused him to do strange things, illegal things. So Beau Biden is the one at fault, but Beau's in the grave, so he can't defend himself. And that, you know, during all that time, Hunter was having an affair with his brother's, his dead brother's wife. So
Hmm.
it's just, I mean, I don't know. It's amazing to me how smart thinking Americans can buy any of this junk, and really, you know, you have to have just plain hatred in your heart for a person, and they have nothing else. I mean, they can't argue the issues, they can't argue the economy, they can't argue everything that Biden has done to this country since he took office. So what they do is they attack the hated one, Donald Trump, and they think that that's going to make everything better. I even saw a guy on Twitter, which is now X, make a comment and says, "I will proudly vote for these two again," and he had a picture of Biden and Kamala on his post, and I said, "I bet you would."
Well, why? My question is why? Like, why the loyalty? Because I mean, you know, I saw that too. Like, I see people defending, and it's like, look, these people do not give a snot about you,
Yeah,
the American people, at all. I
yeah.
mean,
But that's how bad the indoctrination and propaganda is.
yeah,
The
you should
propaganda
not give a
machine.
care about them. I mean, the thing is you could blame all the problems. The proof is in the pudding. Blame the problems on COVID, blame them on whatever you want. Our economy, everything. I mean, everything that's going on right now is because of the powers that be.
Yeah,
So if you want more of this, by all means, go for it. But everybody's feeling the pinch, except for the people in power, of course. But
yeah.
um,
Well, let's move on to the latest uh, Joe Biden news. And this one is really amazing. And I think further goes to proof that he is in cahoots with the Chinese. Joe Biden is mobilizing the federal government to empower Chinese nationals to be able to buy up property here on American soil. Okay? So just imagine your neighborhood being carved up by millionaire and billionaire foreign nationals. We are the only country on the planet that allows a foreign national to purchase real estate in their country, and that's for security reasons. You can't go to another country and as a foreigner and buy property in a foreign country without going through a security check and without uh, going through a whole range of requirements before, and then you don't really have full control of what you're buying. The government keeps their hand in whatever you're buying, and they can snatch it away from you at any moment.
hmm.
In other words, if a third world government comes into power, they can nationalize everything, and boom, everything you own or thought you owned is gone because they'll take it from you.
I mean, but that's what the commies want. That's the Marxist way, right? Like,
Yeah.
no private property, level the playing fields. You know, the last what is it? The Burgoys, or the last
Well,
capitalist that we're gonna have is that we're gonna hang is the guy who sold us the rope to hang him. I mean, it's
right.
like, get rid of all private property. Do you understand what Marxism is? It is the antithesis to freedom.
Unfortunately, I think a lot of our young people don't understand. They've
Right.
been co-opted, and they've been taught and indoctrinated with the concept that it's nothing more than just another economic system. just
And
like capitalism.
And it's not social justice. It doesn't make the poor's lives better. It makes everybody poor because people by nature are corrupt, and absolute like corrupt power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. So if you don't like big capitalists, like big business, that's what a communist government is complete control of the market. That's one big business that's going to control everything, which
And
is the recipe for absolute corruption.
but the irony in this whole thing is that, as most of us know, young people today don't like authoritarian people. They don't like rules. They don't like regulations. They don't like being told what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So the irony is that they're promoting a system that would have total control over their lives,
Right.
and they would have very little freedom. So again, a contradiction in terms. They're claiming that they're fighting this nefarious fascist system, and that's another word that they throw around that they don't know what it means. And yet they don't understand that if Marxists actually did take over this country, their freedoms would be eroded to almost zero.
Right.
And that's
and you think you're not going to have to work. You think that's going to be an easier life for you. That puts you in a box. It puts you in a prison cell. I mean, the very concept of American freedom. I talked last week about, history, our history versus theirs. What is unique about American history is even during the revolution, when a bunch of ragtag backcountry, untrained military, a non-military, regular Joes were fighting against the world's largest military power at the time on the world, the crown. They won. Why? Because they're fighting for their own freedom. They're fighting for their own land. They're fighting for their own rights. They weren't even getting paid. Why? There were English defectors. There was defectors on both sides, but we're fighting for freedom. We're fighting for personal, individual freedom, and that's what this country's all about. You throw that over. You surrender that to a dictator, a Marxist. Every Marxist in history, any country that has adopted Marxism, as they have always ended up in dictatorships. So you want to call Trump, any Trump voter a fascist? Look at what's happening. Fascism is when the government tries to impose their beliefs. Okay, so America, yes, we were a Christian nation. We were founded by Christians. That is true. That's real history. We have not we have not done away with a government telling you how to live. We've just traded it. Instead of God, now it's atheist humanism. That's the religion of the day.
To be clear, though, we're not a theocracy.
No.
Christians don't want to impose their will on other non-Christians.
No, we have limits. We don't want you corrupting our kids, but we're not going to tell you how to live your life.
Exactly. And we also have the ability to discern between good and evil. And,
right.
Like
and there is law. There is law and order. Yeah, that is necessary in any functioning society. Because
that's it. So basically on this issue, right now, the Biden, what I call the Injustice Department, is in court right now trying to get this ridiculous action legalized for foreign nationals to be able to buy property in the United States of America. So let that sink in for a moment. And if you're not paying attention, you need to, because you need to call your representatives, you need to call your elected officials and tell them that this is not what we want for our country. And that should go across the board. I mean, Democrats, Republicans, independents.
Yeah. Vote for who's going to put Americans first.
America. How about America first?
Not illegal immigrants. How come we're forced to take the jab? We're forced to vaccinate, but the illegal immigrants aren't?
Mm-hmm.
Like and hey, this is Hispanic Patriot. We love immigrants, but if we open up our borders, illegal, if it's all illegal, then it all erodes. It all goes away. There has
Well,
to be channels.
it's unsustainable, and we've already talked about this, and we'll be
Right.
talking about it more about immigration reform and all. But the point is that those who claim to be for America are usually the ones that are most anti-American.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Biden is compromised by the Chinese. He's compromised by the Russians. He's compromised by the Ukrainians. And that is a national security issue. So I'm calling, just like other patriots are calling, for the impeachment of Joe Biden. There is more than enough evidence to support an impeachment procedure. And we can't let this go by the wayside without making that statement. Now, you might argue, well, he won't get convicted by the Senate. Well, neither did Trump, but they impeached him twice. So Joe Biden needs to wear that badge because he definitely deserves it. And I'm sick and tired of people making excuses about, oh, well, we don't want to do that because we're going to rile up the opposition and the voters and make them think that we're. And why do we have impeachment laws? Why do we have the things we have in our Constitution if we're not going to abide by them? And that's another topic altogether. The left totally wants to do away with our Constitution. It's not even, a question anymore. And they're bold about it. From the people that want to, take over the Supreme Court, to those that want to do away with the Electoral College. They basically want to destroy this country the way it was founded and created and has been run for 247 years. And people need to wake up and start fighting back. Not everybody is an activist, as I've said before, but everybody can take a moment to make a phone call, send an email, and express their opinions. And I think it's way past time for us as Americans to stand up and fight for the freedoms that we all enjoy. I want freedom for everybody, regardless of political affiliation. And I want people to live together in a nation where we can be proud to be calling ourselves Americans. And unlike our U.S. women's national team, 75% of which hates this country and refuse to sing the national anthem or even stand for it on a international stage. It is pathetic. It is infuriating to me to watch that, and I have not watched any of the U.S. women's games. And I just found out through a sports report today that this is the worst U.S. women's national team ever. They only won one game in their group, and I say that's karma. Karma is coming back to bite them because, this is just ridiculous that we have U.S. national teams of any sport going on foreign soil and disrespecting our flag and our country. Why do we have athletes on national teams that don't respect the country? I don't get it. It's just
Because that's what's in right now. That's what people want to see, I guess. But not half. Here's the a cool thing. I mean, so Jason Aldean's Try That in a Small Town is number 1 on songs downloaded. Number 2 is independent artist Tom McDonald, a Caucasian rapper who gets, mad respect from all different walks of life. He's good. I'm not a huge rap guy, but his song American Flags, look it up. I haven't figured out how to put up a YouTube. It's number 2. So guess what? Americans, they're speaking that way. Bud Light's going down.
They're voting with their voice. They're voting with their pocketbooks, and that's. Look at Bud Light.
It's the sinking ship.
Look at Target's going downhill. They're
Yeah.
they're hemorrhaging money left and right. And every time you have either an immoral or an unpatriotic corporation, company, whatever, stand up and start mocking Americans and trying to shove down their values on their customers, they're going to feel the pinch, and that's what's going on. And I'm glad to see it. Like I said, I'm usually not a big proponent of boycotts, but when they push the envelope to the level they have, I think they deserve it, and I'm hoping that other companies will think twice before going out with this woke culture and siding with them, because they are way in the minority, and they need to understand where their pocketbooks are lined, and that's for the average American consumer that is going to vote with their pocketbook, and they're going to suffer the consequences. So,
Well, and that's the beautiful thing about free market. I mean, if we were truly in a socialist government, like you have no say, no say. I mean, you don't like what the government does, tough, deal with it. You can't boycotts. That's the one way that every American, even most of us who don't have a big following, or we don't know our votes are votes aren't counting. So how else can we act and speak? By way
yeah,
of where we put our dollars, and stick to it. I mean, so but the good thing is that I'm super optimistic. I mean, the loud minority, the very loud and whiny minority of the left, but like the far left, they're way outnumbered. They're just the loudest faction because they have the media and they have Hollywood. It's all corrupted. But the independents, the independent news outlets, the independent artists, the ones that are not puppets, that are not in the pocket of, BlackRock and all these other, the big government, big tech, all these bullies, they're speaking out from the other side and they're winning. The voices are being heard and Americans are resonating with it. So, I mean, I'm optimistic. I think next year is going to be way different, way better. But I wanted to just read this proverb here. This is something I always think of. And this is, you're getting, whether different media channels are going to tell you one thing or another, but it comes down to the proof in the pudding. Like, so Proverbs 29, 2-12, whether you're religious or not, this is wisdom. This is the book of wisdom from Solomon, mostly, some others, but mostly Solomon, who was the wisest to ever live, that the queen of Egypt would come and get advice from, and kings from all over. It says, when the righteous thrive, the people rejoice. When the wicked rule, the people groan. Are we rejoicing right now, or are we groaning? How was our economy 4 years ago, 3 years ago, pre-2020? How is it now?
yeah,
We were so privileged and blessed. And that's the problem. When you have no code, when you get blessed and privileged, you get corrupted, you get shitty. That's the way people get. It's like spoiling a child. We're a bunch of spoiled children throwing a tantrum right now.
yeah.
Well,
America needs its diaper changed.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's what, I mean, the left, they lose an election and they go tear down cities and burn out buildings, you can point January 6th, I'll give you that, but I don't, I think that was political warfare itself. So,
Well, I have my own opinion on that. I
oh
think
yeah. And most people do. I
it's,
mean, it's clear what was going on there for sure. That's political warfare. So that's another thing too. We got to be careful of that. Don't spark the powder keg that the Democrats leave out for you. But anyways, so let's put a bow on it. On a positive note, what can our just standard everyday Hispanic voter, Hispanic patriot voter, what can we do? I'm not one, but what can the regular Joe do in this point? So we go vote. What's the prop called? What is that in Colorado for Dave?
oh, it's Amendment 7 is the one that's up for a vote this Saturday. And
Amendment
then
7. Okay.
and then on September 30th is the big vote for the opt out of the open primaries. I will be out of the country on that date, but I am going to send my proxy to the meeting in favor of that proposition. And hopefully this Saturday we're going to be able to put through the yes amendment so that if people decide not to show up, then that's fine. You know, their vote will be counted as a yes. And I think that's appropriate. You got people out there calling this un-American, Stalinist, totalitarian. They don't know what they're talking about. All they've got is hyperbole, and I'm personally not going to stand for it. I'm going to be at the meeting. May even speak at the meeting, but we're going to be fighting for what this party needs, and those that don't want to participate, then that's up to them. But it's time this party take a turn in the other direction. We've gone the other way far too long. So the establishment is very scared, as witnessed by that flyer that I received today. Um, and it's put out by a group that basically is kind of secretive. I looked them up on the Secretary of State. With a little bit of digging, I found out who founded the group. I'm not going to name him on air, but he knows who he is. I was actually shocked to see who it was, because I thought that person was not that type of person, but you learn something new every day. And this is what we're seeing, and it's time to fight. It's time. The gloves are off, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm not pulling any punches, and a lot of my fellow patriots are not pulling any punches. We're going to fight. We're going to stand, and we're going to do what's right. And those that don't like it, well, they can go pound sand, as far as I'm concerned, because
Too much blood's been spilled for freedom. And
yep.
another term of what we're seeing now, that could cripple, that could, I don't believe that's going to happen again. I believe God's sovereign and in control of all this. And, it's all part of his plan.
Yep.
Obama and Trump, they're both like, according to biblical prophecies and scriptures and all that, there's a lot pointing to what's going on today. And, God will have the last laugh. And despite what you think, this country, what makes it thrive is the biblical values it was founded on, the concept of freedom and equality that is straight out of the scriptures, despite the abuses that have been done. Yeah, but it doesn't change the facts. And so that it all comes, like, all the blessing that we enjoy in this country, and that makes everybody from all different countries want to come here. So many who want to migrate here.
So I want to close. We're running out of time, so I want to close with a recommendation to continue to support Sound of Freedom. Go to our website and go and find tickets for that. If you can afford it, pay for them. If not, they have free tickets. But spread the word. Keep spreading the word. This film is breaking records, and the left is just apoplectic about it. So in closing, I'm going to leave you with a quote that I ran across that I think is kind of appropriate for the current times. And it goes like this: if you're not making mistakes, then you're not doing anything. I'm positive that a doer makes mistakes. You know who said that?
Who?
John Wooden, the great basketball coach from UCLA, a great believer, Christian man who had some of the most successful basketball teams in history. And he was a great leader and a great mentor. Very wise man. So that's who said that. I think it's appropriate for what we're looking at. So next week we'll have some new topics. I know, Peter, you're going to be gone for a couple of weeks, so we'll either have a substitute for you, or I'll fly solo, and we're going to have some good topics to handle. So thank you, everyone, for watching tonight, and God bless you, and God bless America.